Hey guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here. Today I'm back with another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how powerful is Rune King Thor. Now I know in my last video, I reacted to Death Battle's Thor versus Vegeta, and in that video, I stated there's a lot about Thor I don't know. So for me to be unbiased, I have to go and do some research myself. And when I was doing it, I thought to myself, I was like, well, the best way to do it is to, one, find the strongest version of Thor and, do some research on that. And two, find out how powerful Odin is, because later on in the stories in Marvel, sometimes it happens, Thor at some point takes over the throne and becomes the king of Asgard himself. And to do so, he would have to, his power has to rival that of Odin. So using Odin's feats would be the best way to determine how strong Thor would be in his max. So yeah, if Odin is OP, then Thor should be OP too. So I'm going to be going and doing research on that, but for right now, I'm going to be focusing on Rune King Thor. Luckily for me, when you look for the strongest version of a character, a lot of time comic book fans, they state this is the strongest version, that's the strongest version, and it's very inconsistent. Like with Superman, they stated Superman Prime 1 million, they stated pre-crisis Superman, they stated Cosmic Armor Superman, they stated pre-crisis they stated Superboy Prime. They stated multiple characters, but it's like only one can be really the strongest. And luckily for Thor, there isn't that many. The only other versions I can think of is Cosmic Thor and Thor the God of Hammers, but those are newer ones. And still people, I think, agree that Rune King Thor is the most powerful version of Thor. Now, I don't know if there's multiple different times where he shows up, but I've only found one, and this is the first time he came into be. So yeah, before we get into the story, I do want to talk about where you can go to find this, to check it out on your own. One of the big problems that I have with Screw Attack is a lot of times they don't source their site where they get their information from. They give us a lot of information and feeds saying this character can do this or that, but a lot of times they don't tell us where they got it from, especially when it comes to comic book characters. It's more complex because they're getting information from many different comic books from here and there. So for us as fans who want to read it ourselves and try to understand his power, it's hard because they're not really giving it to us, so you have to search it online. So luckily for you guys, I'll give you guys the information. If you want to find out about Rune King Thor, just search up Thor from 1998 to 2004, from issue 80 to 85, which is the final issue of that series. So yes, once again, if you want to check it out for yourself, just go on a comic book website, search up Thor. There will be a whole listing. Find Thor from 1998 to 2004. Go from issue 80 to 85, and you'll be able to read up on Rune King Thor yourself. When I read it, I thought he was going to be throughout the entire 5 issues, but when I read it, I found out that he wasn't there for the first 3. He only shows up for the last 2, and it's he's barely there anyway. The beginning of the story is basically a backstory about Asgard, Odin and Mjolnir and stuff, and how the world works. And then it's just showcasing a battle between Thor and Loki, and Thor being beaten and being depleted and depowered, and having to regain that power and even surpass it to stop Loki and to also stop Ragnarok, which it keeps on happening and they have to keep on preventing it, but he wants to stop it once and for all. So the story starts off with Odin explaining that him and his brothers defeated an ancient godly being who, when they defeated him, they used his body to create the heavens, the earth, and the skies. And they were creating the universe from his celestial body. So when they killed him, they used it. And shortly afterwards, Odin himself found a cave with worms, and I think they said rats or moles or whatever, and he breathed life into them, and that thus created the dwarves. And once he created the dwarves, he had them forge him a weapon for war, which was Mjolnir. So he had them create Mjolnir for him. And the only way to create Mjolnir, or a weapon of that level of power, he had to create it in a dying star. So the star was shooting out heat and stuff to heat up the metal and stuff. And he also used this super hot ember from the star, and it said it required the star to die. So the sun, I guess, went supernova and got destroyed. And while they're forging it, they're basically shaking all of Asgard, and they're sending fire flying off, and it was hitting the earth, wiping out the dinosaurs, and allowing man to be created. So it basically created the extinction of the dinosaurs, which would make Mjolnir at least hundreds of millions of years old, and Thor and I mean Odin also hundreds of millions of years old, which is crazy because Thor and Loki are like a couple of thousands of years old. So the fact that he's that old is crazy. So yeah, he did that. They did say that he destroyed it required the destruction of the sun and a planet, but the planet wasn't destroyed. It was just the surface of it was destroyed because it was, the extinction of the dinosaurs. And the star was already dying. That's how they had forged it, because they needed an extreme amount of heat to do it. And then after this, we just have, a battle between Thor and Loki's kids. Loki's kids jump Thor. He sends off a big energy blast, destroying the place. And then Loki comes in and attacks him. He thinks he's dying and he's giving up, but he gets out of there. And then he's fighting around. And Loki is basically killing off a bunch of the Asgardians, a bunch of the warriors, a bunch of Thor's friends, and now Thor is mad. And he's, remembering back when he was talking to somebody, and he said, he basically stated that he used to have the ability to rewind time, which is interesting. And I also kind of forgot to mention the fact that Odin, when he got the thing created, the hammer, he actually imbued some of his own power and Odin force into the hammer itself, which makes sense why it's so powerful and able to do crazy things, because Thor's hammer has more power. To be honest, I think Thor's hammer has more power than him, because it can do a lot crazier things. So when he says he can travel through time, that doesn't mean through his own physical abilities, but through his hammer. And it makes sense now due to the fact that it does have the power of, his father, Odin, who is, an all-father. I know I said in my other video, just Skyfather. I was mixing, the characters from DC with Marvel. So he's the All-Father. So it makes sense that it would be that powerful and able to do crazy things. So yeah, after that we see he's trying to look for it. He's trying to fight them, and the stuff between the stories is really not that important. There's nothing really to it that has to do with feats. But he does meet up with this entity, this physical entity that takes the form of a kid. In the story, he meets this kid and he protects the kid and saves the kid, but the kid ends up dying in a battle trying to fight, just trying to fight, and he dies. And basically this energy or the spirit transforms itself into the kid and talks to Thor. We get later on revealed that that energy form that is talking to Thor is the Odin force itself. So what happened was when Odin died, he died to Surtur. When Surtur killed him, Thor took over the reign of, King of Asgard, and as doing so, he obtained the powers of the Odin force. And from what it was stated in the story was the Odin force was stripped from him. He didn't know why, but now that the Odin force is there in a physical form, it explains to him that he was unworthy of the power because he relied on it too much. So it stripped it from, it left from himself. And so this shows that the Odin force can exist even without Odin, and it also has its own conscience, and it's very powerful. But even then, the Odin force has its own limitations and has you can't just keep on using it whenever you want to or whenever you need to. You need to be having, you still need to rely on your own wisdom and knowledge. And that's what Thor starts learning around in the story. And as he does this, he goes to, obtain wealth of knowledge and wisdom as his father has. So he goes to the well called Mimir to get, intelligence. And the way his dad did it is he sacrificed one of his eyes to be all-knowing and all-seeing, and also hung himself on the tree for 9 days and 9 nights, nearly dying to gain the full power of it. So Thor goes through the same thing. He takes out one of his eyes, isn't enough. He takes out a second eye, and now he has the well. He washes himself and drinks it, and he's basically able to see a bunch of knowledge and stuff, but that's not the end of it. He needs the power of the ruins, which will additionally boost his already naturally boosted power. So he hangs himself the same way his father did on the tree, and he's gaining more and more knowledge. And he himself states that he's having more foresight. He can see the past, present, and future. He says something about he can see the past, control the future, or something like that, control the present, and change the future. And not only can he see this, he said he can see past the veil of time itself and can see between the quantum realm and I guess he said cosmic architecture of the universe, which basically shows that he has highly advanced foresight. Just like with Cosmic Armor Superman having 4D vision, he also has something like that, but I think to a higher degree, because not only could he see through time itself and sees the knowledge of the world around him, but he could also he can also see in the quantum plane of existence. So it shows that his mind's on a higher dimensional plane of existence now. And he can't handle it, so he breaks out of it, though he does have the power of the ruins and now the knowledge of the wisdom well. And as he does this, he gets contacted by these ancient godly beings that are basically like black shadowy figures, and they start talking to him, and these figures are revealed to be old ancient gods. And these ancient gods, what they do is they keep on enacting Ragnarok, and as Ragnarok keeps on happening, the Asgardians keep on dying, and as they die, they feed off of the energy of the Asgardians, and then they keep on resurrecting them, going in this endless cycle of death and rebirth. And Thor is done with it. He's like, I want this to finish. I want to end Ragnarok permanently. I don't want my people to be dying and coming back to life forever. So the gods like, we're beyond your power. You can't even fathom it. You gods are nothing compared to us. Which Thor reveals to him as, he's like, you've studied, you basically followed everything I've done as a god, and you study everything as gods, so you know everything about gods. But the one thing you didn't count on was mortals. So basically what happens is Thor realizes that the reason he was sent to Earth by his father and banished there was basically to help him. He was planning ahead for this event because he knew that these events would keep on happening, but Odin couldn't stop it or change it himself. So he entrusted Thor, his son, with the task to deal with it. So to do it, he sent him to the world of the mortals to understand the mortals and see through humans' perspective of life. Because the godly perspective is, it's so, they're so above humans that they don't really think like us. So he needed a human's perspective. So the biggest weakness for these ancient godly beings is the fact that they rely too heavily on looking at, the gods and how they act, but they don't really check the mortals. So by Thor being sent there by his father, he gained the knowledge of them, and he could use this to take them down, which they were like, okay, that's interesting. He leaves, and as he leaves, he's talking to the Odin Force and states that the Odin Force has come back to him. Now he has the power of the Odin Force, he has the wisdom of the well, and he has the magical power of the ruins, which he does use to banish somebody. Loki comes up and he basically pulls his head off. He rips his head off of his body, but it doesn't kill him. He's just a headless body. And if you played God of War, you will see Mimir, which is the name also of the well, is basically a headless guy that he just carries around. So basically, that's what he does with Thor. He carries around him, and then he's goes to Surtur, and at this point, Loki's like, you're acting crazy. I don't want to destroy Asgard. I just want to rule it in my image. Whereas Thor wants basically to enact Ragnarok, have this final battle, and destroy Asgard. But it's obviously to reset things perfectly so they don't have to go through it again. So he meets Surtur. He tells him to refix his hammer. He says he's not going to strike him down or kill him. He's going to actually let him walk through and destroy whatever he wants. So he recreates the hammer, goes to the Sisters of Fate, and he starts talking to them. He says he wants to change fate itself, and basically the Sister of Fate said you can't change fate, and Loki basically calls him out on it, where Thor also agrees. He says, yes, I can't change what has already been written. I can't do that. So this already showcases that even though Thor has gotten way more powerful, he isn't so OP to the point where he can manipulate reality to that extent, or time, and just change events of history and do whatever he wants. He still has limitations, and he's pointing at this mural that's right next to it, and he's talking about Surtur and all this stuff, and he points at the threads that are interwoven by the Sisters of Fate and Norse mythology. They basically control fate and how it works. So they're using the thread, and he says he can't do anything about that. But there's a thread sticking out of it, and it's stated that the thread sticking out the loom, and it's in a cycle, and if he destroys it, he ends the cycle. So all he has to do is destroy this one thread of fate that interwoves all of fate itself. He can't change fate itself, but this one thread, if he severs it, which he has the power to do, if he severs it, he can change stuff, which the ancient gods are like, oh, okay, we respect you, we honor you, you're great, you're wise, you're powerful, we'll give you what you want, just don't do it. And he says, I don't give a damn, and ends up chopping it in half, destroying it. In doing so, it does reset the time. You see basically a bunch of different variations of Thor and like other characters that he met on Earth and in Asgard, and he's talking about the gods. They anticipated the moves of another god, but they never anticipated that of a human, and that since he thought more of like a human and consider himself kind of a human too, instead of just like a godly being, he was thinking on a perspective that they couldn't, and because of this, he was able to stop Ragnarok. And then in the final last like little pages of the story, he basically talks about how they fed continuously on the Asgardians and the gods' power and energy to fuel themselves, but at some point everybody has to die, and the only way for there to be creation, there has to be destruction, like Beer says. So he had to destroy that, and that basically wraps up the story, and that's the end of Rune King Thor. Now, what does this mean? To be honest, for me personally, I expected to be some crazy stuff happening in the story, some ridiculous feats, but from what I saw, there wasn't barely much anything in it, and I feel like he's the same as Superman Prime 1 Million or Cosmic Arm Superman, where they're shown to be and stated to be ridiculously powerful, and probably are, but when we look at the feats and the statements and the story itself, it's nothing that crazy. And the thing that sucks about these type of characters is a lot of times, since they're very short and they don't have that much of a runtime, and like I said, there's only basically 2 pages, issues of him having this power, and he barely does anything anyway. It's hard to use feats. So I don't understand why people are saying this is the most powerful version of Thor. I guess maybe if you look back at it and you think about it, the amount of power that he absorbed, the Odin Force, the knowledge of the well, and the ruins, it wouldn't make sense to him to be very powerful in what he was able to accomplish. But when you think about it, he didn't do anything crazy with that power itself. I mean, all he did was basically, he basically, he turned one of these guys, he put his soul into a bottle. He was able to rip off Loki's head and keep him alive and not kill him and stuff, and he didn't feel pain. He also was able to stop Ragnarok from happening permanently, which Odin was never able to do, and he was able to thwart these ancient gods. And when you think about it, it does sound powerful, but when you look at it in the story and you have context to it, it doesn't really sound as ridiculous, because these ancient gods, even though they're supposed to be like all-knowing and very powerful, they had a big weakness, and he exploited it easily, and it was due to his father's involvement in it. His father basically cast him to Earth, which they themselves didn't care enough to check up on, and that was their downfall. So it wasn't because he was super powerful that he was able to stop them. It was because he was given the ability to deal with humans, and this was able to avoid their detection on his mental state and stuff. And then also when Thor, him stopping Ragnarok and resetting stuff, it might sound powerful, but it isn't that powerful, because even he himself stated that he can't change fate, he can't change what is already written. So if he is as ridiculously powerful as people say, like a multiversal level being, doing something like that shouldn't be too hard for him. So the fact that he outwardly admitted that he couldn't do that, and it's not like he prevented Ragnarok, it's just that he was cut the thread that looped the cycle that restart everything. And you could say that's powerful. That I will give it to you. That does seem like a powerful feat, but we also don't know what that really entails and what that means, how much power you would need to sever it, because he didn't destroy the rest of it. He just destroyed this one thread, and you could, I guess, consider this thread as either a time loop or what is that word they say when it's like in time, where it's like it's not supposed to be a part of the thing, it's outside of the confines of time. So since I think it was a thread that was outside of the confines of time, and it was described to be that way, severing it itself did the work. It was basically, he took an important piece out of the puzzle, and then the rest of the puzzle fell on top of itself. So it wasn't really him changing time itself, it was just cutting a single thread. Now, if you want to say that that's insanely powerful that he was able to cut this, I guess you can, but for the rest of the part, I wouldn't give him that much credit. I don't think anything he really did in the story was mind-blowing to me or shocking or put him in top-tier godly being level. To be honest with you, I don't really think he's that powerful. Maybe I wasn't understanding the story very well. Maybe I might have been misinterpreting it. Who knows? But you guys have the information on where to check it out yourself if you want to understand, you know, how powerful he is. So you guys can go check it out, read it yourself. But from what I saw, he didn't do anything crazy. I think the craziest was the threat thing, but I think it is a little more complex than people make it sound out to be. It's not that he just overpowered it. I think it was simply he was willing to do something. He knew what he had to take out, and the thing that he was taking out was, since it wasn't a part of time itself, and it was just like you know, an outside of it and in a loop, destroying it itself would be easier than destroying the time itself. And he even stated he couldn't do that. But I guess if you want to state that he's more powerful because of the Odin Force, I guess that's fair, because for me, like I said, I still haven't read on how powerful Odin is. So I guess by just comparing it logically, if he does have the Odin Force with this other additional power making him stronger than Odin, then it would basically mean that Rune King Thor is greater than Odin. So whatever insane feats Odin can do, Thor can do that, but even better. But then again, like I said, I have to check out how powerful he is to make that you know, determination on how powerful he is. But from what I've seen in this issue alone, I don't see him being that powerful or that ridiculously of a heavy hitter. He didn't do anything crazy. If you guys think there's something crazy that he did besides, you know, the comparison thing, tell me what you think was more crazy. But for me, I don't see anything that interesting. Is Rune King Thor powerful? He could be very seriously powerful due to the, you know, the comparison stuff. But from this issue alone, from what we've seen from these 5 issues in this little series, I wouldn't say he's anything that impressive to me. He isn't that crazy. So yeah, there's that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next.